Hello guys, and welcome to the F23A1 rebuild series. For those of you that this is your first time visiting, be sure to check out the other videos. Consider a subscription to the channel. If you see anything that's going to help you out, please be sure to leave a like as well. For those that are returning, thank you for your continued support. We're getting close to the end now. It's time to start addressing some of these transmission problems that we have. Not too bad, it's going to be pretty easy to take care of. This is a 5-speed automatic transmission. If you watch from the beginning, you pointed out that I had an oil leak at the O-ring for the distributor that came down top of the transmission, just left a mess. It's not anything other than cosmetic, but we're going to address that. And also, I replaced a clutch about a year before I took this engine apart. And what I did not do was get that flywheel resurfaced. So we're going to address both of those problems right now. Bam, I should do special effects for Hollywood. Okay, start with the transmission. Just took that outside, degreased it, let it sit, hit it with the pressure washer, got the most of the grease off. Again, it's not going to be perfect, but this way, if you have a leak or any other problems, you'll be leaking onto something clean, so it'll make it a little easier to track down. Also a little easier to handle. Every time you touch it, you don't get covered in grease and whatnot. As for the flywheel, I checked around a couple different places. Basically, nobody resurfaces flywheels anymore. It's kind of gone the way of the brake pad or the brake drum, the brake rotor. They just replace them. So the guys I talked to, they're like, you know what, just look online, see what the price is, because it's probably going to be, if you find somebody to do it, it's going to probably cost you about the same amount of money. So I got that one online for 60 bucks, I think. And to cut a new one, or to cut the old one, probably would have been around 45 or 50 bucks had I found somebody with the equipment to do it. So I just went ahead and bit the bullet. I've been waiting for the parts. That's why this video is a little delayed coming out. So I'm going to let this stuff dry off now. I'm going to get the engine off the stand. We're going to start reassembling the back end here. All right, guys, I have the engine off the stand now, and this is going to be my setup for putting the flywheel back on. I have the engine still supported with the hoist, and then underneath the oil pan on the higher side, I have some blocks of wood. Let's see if I get this camera positioned. We're going to show you what we're going to do to get that flywheel put on the back. All right, I hope that's going to be good enough for you to take a look there. The bolts that hold the flywheel on the back are these guys. You see they have the star pattern 12 point, so you will need a 17 millimeter 12 point to put the flywheel back on. Okay, in order to line the flywheel up correctly, they give you this pin between these two bolt holes. And there is a corresponding mark on the flywheel as well that needs to be in that position. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get this in position and get two of the bolts started first. And don't be fooled, that flywheel it's not heavy, but it's kind of awkward. The weight is awkward when you're doing this part right here. Okay, now that I have two of those started, we're going to come back and show you how I'm going to put the rest of them in. I have my other ones here. What I'm going to do is I am going to apply some Loctite to the backs of these, and then we're going to torque them down to the appropriate setting. I've seen some other people, some well-known YouTubers, just using the impact wrench to run those down, and if I remember right, a certain Subaru with a K engine, and it had one of these back out, and it caused them a lot of trouble. They tried to play it off like it had nothing to do with them not torquing things right, but I wonder. So we're going to Loctite these, and we're going to torque them down right. All right, I did bump those down with the chrome 12 point. Had no torque applied to it. I'll just get them all good and snug. I'm going to come back with the torque wrench now and do this correctly. We'll point out that the new flywheel did come with a pilot bushing already installed, so that's not going to be an issue. So let me get set up with the torque spec, and we'll come back and get that on. All right, guys, if you can see up front there on the right, that's my breaker bar laying across the leg for the engine hoist. 19 millimeter on the front of that, attached to the crank bolt. It's going to lock things up, and we'll come down. I'm going to go in a crisscross pattern on this flywheel. The torque setting is 76. Remember, you always want to ease up to your torque setting, just not stop at it. All right, last one. I'm gonna go back around, make sure each one of them bump with the torque wrench. Make sure I got them all. That would be a difficult place to get back to if you made a mistake here. All right, 76 all the way around should not be an issue in the future. All right, guys, for this next part, this is going to be actually putting the clutch and the pressure plate on the back of the flywheel. If you're just looking for a video to install a clutch on this particular engine, most engines for that part, this is a good part, just could be standalone for that. Now we have our new clean flywheel on. First thing I'm going to do, you see I've actually put on rubber gloves for this part because my hands are still greasy from everything I've been doing. And this needs to be clean and dry. No grease on that, it could interfere with the operation of the clutch. So this thing I've got here doesn't work. It's got dirt in it. So. There we go. All right. I need to fix that. All right, we're just going to give this a good pipola. Also, when they ship these, they put a additive on there. It's called Cosmoline. It's a rust inhibitor, and that needs to come off too, so it needs to be clean and dry. Okay, this is my clutch and my pressure plate for this car. I'm going to clean the back of this also. That's your pressure plate that runs up against one side of the clutch, and then one side goes against the flywheel itself. Both the pressure plate and the clutch are new, or fairly new. On this particular one, you see it has flywheel sides on it. So, and how I always think of the raised side, it goes away from the flywheel. So what we need to do is attach this and line it up with the pilot bearing, so that way when we go to put the transmission in the back of it, everything's going to line up perfectly. I do save, when I get clutch kits, the alignment tools. This is the alignment tool for this particular engine. You run that through like that, and you just put it into your pilot bearing. Just like that. Now you know you have your flywheel in line where it's supposed to be with the clutch plate. Now before I put the pressure plate over, you'll notice these locating dowels. The pressure plate can only line up one way with those. To go in conjunction with the bolt hole here. So here I have a dowel hole, here I have a bolt hole. And if that doesn't fit, then what you have to do is go around and try another sequence. That seems to work for me right there though. These are the bolts to hold that on. These are also 12 points, so you'll need, I believe that's, on the flywheel it'll say 10 millimeter. I'll come back and tell you for sure. But we're also going to Loctite these. And we're not going to get anything tight just yet. We're just going to get things started. And these are 10 millimeter, 12 point. I forgot my zip tools, 3/8 inch, so this is what we just have to do. And again, all we want to do is get things started. We're not going to tighten any of this down yet because there's still a part that we have to do to make sure that this is all lined up correctly before it goes down flat. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to, again, Loctite everyone, just go around. I'll come back when I'm done. Okay, with each one of those started, actually I had to go back and I had to back a couple out just a little bit, because what you want to happen here is you still want to be able to move this in the middle and make sure everything is lined up perfectly before you start tightening things down. Take a step back, Make sure that the tool is centered in these springs just the way it's supposed to be. And as you're tightening things down with your hand, not a tool at this time, you just want to keep kind of giving that a little bit of a wiggle. All right, take a step back, make sure I look good. Now I'm going to kind of run these down opposite of each other. Like that. Okay, I cannot move that tool anymore, so that's going to be our final position for it. And each one of these are now hand snug down. All right, I'm going to come back and just keep going around slowly working it down, because this is a spring. It's pushing against that the clutch plate in there, smushing it between the pressure plate and the flywheel. All right, guys, with all of those run down to where the pressure plate is flat all the way around, it's time to torque these 10 millimeter 12 points. They go to 19 foot-pounds. I may have said something different a minute ago. If I've already said that, I can't remember if I did or not, but the correct torque setting is 19. We'll go around in a crisscross pattern with that. All right, looks good. All right, the next phase is going to be to mount the transmission on the back of that. I have it sitting here just off camera. You basically just going to input shaft. It's going to go right in where our tool just did. Make sure everything clicks together, and we're going to start these bell housing bolts. All right, we're looking inside the front of the transmission now. This is your input shaft, and we have to get it ready for the throwout bearing and the lever that works the throwout bearing. You want to make sure that these are clean, because this is the part that's actually going to go into your clutch. This part back here needs to be clean, and it needs to be slightly lubricated. This is your throwout bearing. This was new. I know it doesn't look very new, but it's probably a year old. It's good to go. It goes in here, and it's going to ride back and forth on that thing as you operate the clutch. So you do need to have this to be fairly clean and to have some lubrication on that. This is your shift fork. It's going to come in through the back here. Or actually, yeah, it goes in through the back. I'll show you when we get there. It has a pivot point here that goes on this round ball here. That needs some lubrication on it also. And you want some lubrication on the ends of the shift fork where they catch the throwout bearing there. It's not this any kind of high speed friction operation, but you don't want to, a month down the road, every time you press your clutch, you hear everything squeaking. So that's what the point of lubricating this part of the system is going to be. To do that, I'm going to use this product here. It's lithium grease. It's high temperature lithium grease, and we're not going to slather it on. We're going to be very frugal with our application for it, and it should last a good long time, and shouldn't have any squeaking with the clutch operation. So I'm going to get this. I'm just going to wipe this off. I've cleaned it recently, so it's pretty good to go. The inside of this, if you want to, knock yourself out and get all that out, you go right ahead. It doesn't matter. You can't see it. It's not going to affect anything. I'm leaving it just like that. It's about all the elbow grease I'm willing to put in. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a dab of that grease we just spoke about, and we're going to put it on this pivot point for your clutch fork. That should be plenty. And that's, you see the back, it has this spring. It just, when you get it over the top out, you just bump it down and it'll pop that spring open. It'll catch it right there. We'll sneak this in the back to right here. Okay. And we're ready to put the, you kind of have to do the throwout bearing and the forks, the shift forks at the same time to get them to line up right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to coat the inside of this where it's going to ride on this shaft with some of that lubricant. Again, you don't have to get carried away. Anything that's too much, all it does is it attracts dirt, and it can just cause everything to kind of get gummy and not work right. And on the back here, I'm going to lube these parts here, because that's where the shift fork actually makes contact with it. Yeah, that was too much. Okay. I'm going to move my shift fork in position at the top of that and kind of move it down. Once you get in this position, it's just a matter of bumping this. There you go. That's the operation. When you push down your clutch, master cylinder depresses that, presses in on those springs, releases your clutch. That easy. When I get the transmission back on, I'll get that boot put back where it's supposed to be. And I am going to put just a little bit that leftover grease on these, and that's only to ease it, that maybe help us get it into the clutch and the pilot bearing. Just enough to give it some color. I wouldn't go any more than that. All right, I'm gonna back you up now. We're gonna get ready to line this up and get it put in. All right, I'm not gonna lie, some cussing could go down here, so I'll be sure to edit that out. But what I need to do, see how that looks. I can get that lined up. I'm gonna raise it up and pick it up a little bit, and I'm gonna guide the input shaft into the opening there in the clutch. All right, I'm not gonna lie, that was a little bit easier than I thought it was gonna be. I know that, I can tell by the way that felt that I'm getting lined up. The back of the bell housing for the transmission does have locating dowels. I should have mentioned that before I started running again. You probably saw, I think there's one here. You probably saw it as I was going, pushing that in. So that got lined up where it was supposed to be. Still have this much more to go, but it's basically, everything's kind of, nothing's really level. But I could tell by the way I put that in that I have the input shaft where it's supposed to be. Everything feels nice and smooth. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some bell housing bolts in the top here. And I'm very going to slowly by hand run those down and kind of wiggle everything as I do to draw these two, the case up against the back of the engine. If anything does not feel like it's going together right, or you're having to put any kind of real pressure on these bolts as you run them down, you need to stop and back up and reassess and make sure that you're going in the right direction. I can tell by the way that's, now that it's actually starting to snug up, I can tell by the way it feels that it's going to be right. It's a good feeling when you slide a transmission bell housing up against the engine. Everything just feels nice and smooth going in. One last thing I'll point out is I had 3 bolts that were the same size and one that's a little bit longer. The longer one's going to go underneath your fork right here. One does not go here, even though it looks like it does actually, but that's for your starter that goes right here. All right, gentlemen, that last bolt, the shorter one, goes right here. All right, get that snug down. That's going to be our stopping point for today. Got quite a bit done there. Kind of take a step back here, take a look at that. Just a couple more things left to do, and I'm going to be ready to drop this back into the car itself. I'm debating on whether or not to go ahead and put the intake manifold and the injectors and all on right now, or wait till he gets back into the engine compartment. It'd be easier to get the engine in without that on, but it's a lot easier to put that on when it's out of the car. So I'll have to figure that out. At any rate, I appreciate you guys that come along with me so far on this. We're getting really close here, and I thank you for your continued support. If you see anything in this video that you think may help you out in the future, please be sure to leave me a like. Any comments, criticisms, things I did wrong or you could have done better, you let us know down in the comments and we'll go over that. And again, if you haven't already, please consider a subscription to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.